Hello, people of the internet on Facebook and YouTube. Today we are coming to you live at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and we are here to talk about volleys. So we're going to be answering all of your spiciest questions about the net game. I'm Kirby Bridges. This is Kevin Garlington and Megan Garlington. As you notice, they have the same name. They are married. So I wanted to just address that. Some people have asked, like, what's the connection? They are husband and wife. We're down in Ian today, so I'm sure that he's at home watching, crying because he is not getting to coach on volleys, which is his favorite thing. But he's taking care of his sick wife. So we are so glad that you're here. Make sure that you drop us a comment down below. Let us know where you're from and what kind of volley questions you have. We're going to be answering all of your questions on YouTube. Megan is handling Facebook. So let us know, and we want to answer everything that we possibly can. Megan, do you have any questions? See, look,
sure.
People are already saying Ian's fired, isn't he? He got fired from his own company.
Sure, we can start off with Tara wants to know how to have more touch with the ball on a volley.
How to have more touch with the ball with your volley. I think of two things that you can think about as far as having touch is thinking about your grip tension, like how hard or how tight you're holding the grip. If you like choke off, suffocate the grip, you're not going to have any grip tension. The other thing is thinking about the impact with the ball. A lot of times, if you have a straight on impact, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to create touch. So having an impact to absorb some of the ball. If you watch a lot of the pros, you see the swing kind of coming across a little bit, and it adds almost a little bit of underspin to the ball, which adds or increases the amount of touch you can have on the ball. Anybody else want to add anything?
No, I think the biggest thing is grip tension. Like if you're just death gripping, then you're not going to have any feel on the ball. That's the biggest thing.
Sweet.
We're going to be talking about a few. I already know it. We're trying to keep up with these comments already. There are going to be certain themes that are really prevalent. I think that tension's one of them. I know that simplicity is another one of them. If you've seen any of our tutorials or student coaching videos, then you know that all of our progressions are all about doing as little as you can with the racket. So we just had a question that came in from Anime Tennis that said, if the ball comes in fast, what do we do? I think the automatic instinct is for people to like,
go crazy,
go
swat.
Nuts,
swat at the ball.
swat.
I think the biggest thing, first of all, if the ball's coming fast, the mindset you have to have is that you don't need to add anything to the ball. Because I think the biggest thing is we see the ball coming fast, we take the racket back fast, and we try to swap, we try to add something, and that just causes a huge like car wreck. First thing, think simplicity. Use very small swings in the sense of you don't really need a backswing. The ball already has a lot on it. You're gonna, like, I heard this analogy and I love it. You're gonna deflect the ball to the location you want. So think of the ball as like sunlight. The racket is like a mirror, and you're just going to take the sunlight and deflect it where you want the ball. So you don't really need a lot of swing on either side. Really focus on the impact and making sure that your legs are ready for the impact and your hands are ready for the impact, and then make sure you're redirecting the ball where you want it. I think that's the biggest kind of key markers of thinking about what you need to focus on when the ball's hit really, really hard at you.
I think you can absorb a lot of the power with your legs also, like you were saying. If you really are staying low, and you're just keeping the racket out in front, you'll absorb a lot of that power. So you don't have to worry about it. I have another one, Kirby.
Okay, Megan, let's jump to you. Sorry, I'm managing these comments. It's a lot going on.
I like it. Some tips. John wants to know some tips for driving the volley, mid-court volley while approaching the net, angling volleys at the net, and any tips you have for those. So mid-court volley and angling the volley. So You want me to take first? Okay.
Yeah,
So
go
the
for
very first thing is, I think one of the biggest rules of thumb for a volley is if the ball is below the net, you're not really looking to angle the volley as much. The ball's below the net, it's good to be able to go soft, high percentage, back straighter, because you have to lift the ball up over the net. If the ball is high above the net, that's the time you can angle off the court a lot easier for a high percentage. Now, I'm not saying that this is, always the case, but this is your high percentage. And then what was the other one? Midcourt volleys. Midcourt volleys, depends on what you're doing. I mean, you could even do a swinging volley, midcourt volley, or if you're just moving forward into a deep, whoops. Sorry, Facebook. Sorry, Facebook. If you're just moving forward through the volley, the legs and the movement through the midcourt volley is the #1 goal. Very little backswing, very little movement on your racket on the midcourt volley, but lots of footwork moving through it, lots of legs.
Yeah, I agree with the legs. I think one of the biggest problems most players have with the midcourt volley is the legs, and it's the timing of the legs. Usually one of the biggest mistakes I think is most players get to the midcourt volley, they hit it and they stop with their legs and they're not flowing through the volley with their legs. I heard this from a really good coach and it really stuck with me that volleys are mostly hit with the legs. And I know there's a lot of focus on what goes on with the hands, but what gives your hands that stability is that you use your legs to create the force that's going through the ball, and it's not directly created with the hands. The hands are great at directing the ball, but the actual force, like you're saying, driving the ball is going to be created from the hands. And as far as the angle, it's going to come from the racket face, making sure that, A, you're close enough that you can hit a great angle volley, and that you set up the racket face that allows you to hit the angle volley by having your racket way in front. If you have it too far in back, it's going to be very difficult to hit an angle volley. So,
Was there a third question?
Nope.
Okay, sorry, I get lost. There's so many comments.
Yeah,
just a reminder, today's topic is volley. So if you have other questions, how to serve, how to be a tennis player, we have all of those videos for you. Just make sure that you search in YouTube for Essential Tennis, and we will have that for you. So just run your search and we will answer that, but just not today personally. In the meantime, let's skip to a question from Chinmay Varshnayas. Should you snap your wrist on volleys to add pop?
Ooh. No, I don't think there's an actual snap of the wrist to create more power. Think about it this way. Your wrist is probably one of the weaker muscles you're going to be using to create power. So that's why I want to use it. If I'm creating power, I'm loading my outside leg if I'm hitting a whatever shot. So if I'm hitting a forehand, I'm going to load my right leg to create that power. And just making sure I'm pushing through the ball and timing correctly. Timing, I think, is something that we don't talk about enough that is so crucial. Timing and impact, making sure you're hitting the center of the strings, which allows you or gives you that great feel, and timing to time your legs pushing through the ball at the right time, because I think that's the biggest thing. Everybody wants so much power in the volley, but they're not timing it correctly with their legs, meaning that you're going to push, make contact, then step for a volley that you're going to transition through. Anything else?
Well, we just had another question come in from M.A. Haney 030. Pronate on a volley, yes or no?
John is asking the same thing about the changing of the angle of the head through impact, which I think is what they're maybe asking too.
Yeah, so it's so what happens on a volley is we want you to do as little as possible. So we literally, our very first progression that we'll have on court with anyone who has volleys where they're maybe dropping or putting too much motion in it, is that we just have them hold the racket like this, and Megan will stand 3 feet away from me and I have to do nothing. And I'll see that I can still make the ball go straight to Megan. So that's how little I have to do with my wrist. I think that people think about what they have to do to execute a volley with the wrist far too much. We want you to, in order to execute the shot that you are looking for, we want you to focus on the racket face, but you should never be pronating on a volley. It should simply be straight through the ball. I can't think of a time that you need to really snap, pronate. This motion can be totally cut out, in my opinion. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think John was, to kind of go a little bit further too, John was talking about like the angle as you make impact. Like maybe if you're having more touch on the ball, you might open your racket face just a little bit more as you're hitting or right after impact, but you're not going to flip the wrist at all.
No, no, I agree. I think the thing is you got to think about the racket face at contact. So if you're in the process of opening it too much, what happens? It actually changes the racket face angle. So that's where you get balls that kind of float or sail. It's because at contact, your racket face is opening. Now, what you do see is, I think a lot of times at contact, a certain amount of what I call recoil, which having that kind of relaxedness, not choking the racket. You see the racket kind of recoil at impact, but you very, very rarely see the racket kind of completely buckle and open up, changing the racket face so dramatically that you can't direct the ball. So I think that's important to understand, that there's not a snap or I don't know, maybe the wording pronation, but there's a recoil of feeling the tension. Also, depending on what type of ball you're going to hit. If you're going to hit a solid one or a softer one. A softer one, you're going to recoil more compared to a ball maybe hit a little bit harder. You're not going to see as much recoil.
Ooh, I like this one. We're adding it to the list. You guys, great questions today. We're adding them to the list, and we are talking fast. Talking as fast as we can so that we can get through as many as possible. Let's jump into a question from Chris. How close to the net should a player at the net be? When does it change?
When does it change?
So, and we just got another question just like that. How close do I need to be from the net to hit the perfect
I would think
volley?
that's a loaded question. Like, I think it depends upon where you're at, like what you're doing. If you're closing in on a volley, if you're in control of the point, are you playing defense? Are you playing offense? But you want to be inside the service line. But depending upon how close you are to the actual net is if I'm on offense. I mean, I would say halfway between the service line and the net, I would scoot back a little bit further than that as a neutral point. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, did you put an X there?
Got the marker.
No, I actually.
But that would be exactly where that
X
was talking. Yeah,
X
that
marks
would
the
be
spot.
kind of And then as you're closing in, you know, you would get closer to the net. But that would be if you're closing in on the volley. If you're playing on a defensive, I mean, I wouldn't go past the service line though. If you're really staying at the net, and if you're playing doubles or singles.
Yeah, I think it depends on if you're playing doubles or singles. There is kind of like I think of it as if you get too close, it's almost like a spring, because what happens is you want to put yourself in a position to guard against I would think the two kind of shots that might happen, meaning that someone dipping the ball too close or too low to your feet in front of you. So that kind of draws you in, but also the lob. So you have to give yourself enough room to cover the most amount of area without opening up too much court. So I would say, like if I'm moving in, I would say somewhere right around here, kind of like where if I'm kind of around this area, because that allows me to still cover the lob or most of it, but it also allows me to get and close the net if I need to. And you want to put yourself in a position that you can close or finish the point and not kind of leave that opening in front. So it's just doing the best you can to guard both positions at once.
Luca from Italy asked the same question. What's the right distance from the net when hitting a volley? I always end up being too close or too far. It really depends. So as you can see, we have two great answers ahead of us. And what they're saying is that nothing is going to ever be the same. So if you have, for example, if you go to a drill session and somebody says, all right, Carol, you start here and you approach and then you stand here. No, that's not how it works. Like, I'm sorry, but it's just not how these scenarios shape up. It depends on all of the factors that Megan and Kevin were talking about. And then one more crucial element has to do with your amount of balance. So again, what I see is what I like to call kamikaze tennis. It's taught all over the place to get the short ball and then you just go. Get into the net and close in and get as close as you can. But please don't do that. So you ultimately want to position yourself as close to the net as you can, including the factors that Megan and Kevin were saying, but with balance. So if you're coming in here, we would rather you stop in no man's land and hit a solid ball when you're in balance and you've split step and you're not sacrificing your positioning than being too close to the net and having the ball come to you too quickly. You can't adjust, your reaction times are off because you're in the wrong position. So basically, don't sacrifice your balance and control for closeness to the net. It is okay to hit a volley from anywhere in here. It's just going to depend. Anything else?
Yeah, no.
No, that's important.
No, the only other thing I would maybe add is know something about your opponent. If you find yourself getting too close, kind of that was one of the comments you made, adjust and see if your opponent hits maybe the lob better than they do the drop with the feet. If I know they hit the lob better, I tend to cover the lob first a little bit and give myself a little bit more room and not close the net so hard.
Mm-hmm. Same thing in doubles too. If you're playing some lobbers.
Yeah.
You have that 3-5 lady that always likes to hit the lob.
Yes.
Those are you got to make sure that you are giving yourself room.
I got a question about a swinging volley. Let's see, where is it? There we go. Okay. From Richie Hernandez, I've been teaching my 8 and 9-year-old swinging volleys. How early would you teach kids this advanced shot? Now, Megan and Kevin are the people to answer this because of their prior experience at such a high level coaching top world ranked juniors.
I wrote them back, but actually kind of the same answer. It was as soon as I feel like they can hit a solid forehand, they have the basic mechanics of a forehand, I start teaching them swinging volley. I mean, if you can hit a solid forehand, the only difference is the swinging volley is at a little bit higher position, and that you're also going to have to teach them the movement and seeing the ball early enough to move up to hit the swinging volley. But definitely at that young age, swinging volley is a very important shot because they tend to get balls that are a lot higher and out of their strike zone, and a swinging volley allows them to move inside the court and not get stuck behind the baseline, maybe playing lob tennis or like moonball tennis all day.
Yeah, and I think with a junior, it's important that depending upon how good their hand-eye is and how good their timing is. Like some kids that have really great timing that I've taught in the past, I would teach them to hit a swinging volley very early. But some kids that might not, they wouldn't come in and hit a swinging volley as much. So you might focus on actually just pushing through the volley a little bit more. Just kind of depends upon the kid.
Megan, do you have any questions
from
Facebook that you want to answer?
Yeah, Stacy from Colorado, wondering about tips. How do you be more confident at the net? Which I think is a big one with women's doubles especially, is confidence. What would you say?
Oh, confidence. First of all, I like to say train and trust. You have to practice the skill that you're working on. A lot of people they have these unreasonable expectations for when they're playing. They think that they can go out into and play tons and tons of matches and just get better. But it's really not how it works. If you want to improve a skill, you have to take the time to train it. And then once that happens, you trust your abilities and make it happen. I think part of that is we're all so hard on ourselves. And especially like you mentioned in ladies doubles, we don't want to let anybody down. That's a really big thing. I actually had within our mental tennis mastery course, we had a moment on court where that was brilliant, where Ed Sang stopped us in the middle of a mixed doubles tiebreak. And I had just missed a ball, and Ian and I were playing on the same team, and he stopped us and said, okay, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And that was my thought was, oh no, Ian, I feel bad. I'm disappointed. I let Ian down. And Ian was on such a totally different page. He didn't care, but I had to realize that the repercussions were not going to be the same. And I needed to get over it. Not going to fire me. We're not going to be, like
missing a
ball. He's not going to be, he's not going to terminate our friendship. Like, nothing's going to happen.
I don't know you anymore.
Yeah. So it's a moment of like realizing what is at stake and then relaxing. I think that really helps with confidence. knowing
I
you're
would
in a
say
good spot.
like volleys are 80% confidence and 20% can you actually hit the ball over the net?
Yeah.
Because I think if you believe, like at the net, I think if you truly believe you can make the volley, most of the time it's going to go over the net.
Yeah. I think that's good life advice.
I think also one other thing to add is get better at knowing where you're supposed to be on the court for volleys. Because I remember when I was younger, volleys were not like my forte. And as I got older, I realized I never really knew where to be. And the timing was always, because you're at the net, the ball's going to come faster, so you have less time to be in the right position. So if you're late if you're late to the correct position, it just infinitely makes the volley that much harder. So really look at like where you're hitting your approaches, where's the best spots to sand, because if you're not in that position, even if you're confident, it's going to kind of erode your confidence about hitting volleys. But if you're not confident, it's gonna do a job on you.
Let's jump into another question. What's the difference between a backhand slice and the backhand volley apart from a shorter swing? That's from Hamim.
Yeah.
Thanks for your question.
I personally think there's not much of a difference because the backhand volley is maybe going to be a little bit more direct, but even on the slice, if you really watch it, there's a pretty direct swing. I think there's a big sometimes misconception that when we think of slice, we think of hack. How can we hack down on the ball? When a slice is, I think of a lot more drive with a little bit of underspin. And when it comes to the backhand volley, I think more so the same thing. Now, the difference will probably be on the follow-through side. On the volley, you still have a bit of a follow-through, but on the slice, you're going to have a much longer follow-through and potentially adding some more spin depending on what type of slice, because there's different types of slices. They're not just like one slice. You have a slice you can stick. You have a slice that you actually want to float to buy more time. So, but overall, looking at the technique, there's, as far as looking at the contact and the setup for it, very similar, follow through a little bit longer on the slice versus the volley.
Fantastic. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have quite a few here.
Okay.
Freddie wants to know, he says, I'm quick like lightning, which I love that
part.
On the baseline, but my reaction is poor at the net. And I seem to hesitate at times. How can I correct that? So I think it's how can you make your footwork better and quicker response at the net?
Great question.
I think it goes almost back to the confidence question in the sense of knowing where you're supposed to be. I think, we were talking about volleys not too long ago in a sense. And I was talking about volleys to two members. We were talking, I'm like repeating myself, two members, and we're talking about where we're supposed to go. Like if you're supposed to go down the line or cross court, and knowing that, let's say if you approach generally cross court, a lot of times you might have to cover more court. So, I mean, you could be quick, but it doesn't matter if you get there. So I think it's really important knowing the positioning. And as far as your footwork per se, the technical portion, kind of the timing of your footwork is so important on the volley. I cannot stress that enough. And I think that's, if it was for me, looking back at like some of the biggest mistakes most players make, it's in the footwork a lot more than the hands sometimes. If you don't swing and you're finding that you're having trouble with the volley, a lot of times it's footwork. It's making sure that you're moving through the ball. Hope I kind of answered that question. Lightning Freddy threw me off.
Lightning Freddy. That's going to be your new nickname, is Lightning Freddy. Yeah. I like it.
I wish I had a nickname like that. Everybody just talked about how slow I was.
Me and you both, so that's all right. Yeah.
All right. I have a question, a burning question from Hasib. Hasib Nazir. I have a question. My racket shakes when volleying, sometimes too much, and it creates elbow fatigue. Is this a grip issue or another technical fault?
First thing that comes to mind when I hear the racket kind of wobbling, I hear probably you're not maybe hitting the center of the racket. And that's pretty tough. The other thing I might hear is that, it just depends on, I would say hitting the center of the racket and making sure that when you make impact, depending on what type of volley, kind of figure out, are you making a direct impact where the ball's been hit really hard and you're trying to match that kind of head on? Or understanding that kind of like when the ball is coming really fast, how you can deflect the ball. The analogy that comes to mind is if you've ever seen Karate Kid. The first one, wax on, wax off, Mr. Miyagi. If you haven't seen it, go see it. But anyway, I think of that when the ball comes, that when the ball's coming, you have a choice. I'm in the zone now. Mr. Miyagi put me there. You have a choice when the ball's coming. You're either waxing on or waxing off, or you can go through it. If the ball's softer, then you can kind of hit through it. If the ball's really hard, I'm thinking how I can deflect it and wax on, wax off. A little plug to Karate Kid.
We like to do this demonstration when we are on court with a student. Can I get one of you to just stand here?
Stand.
Can you hold this like a volley? So what we do is, I've got Kevin. Actually, can I see it like a forehand? So you're just open. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So what we do is we show people what it feels like to hit the ball right in the center of the strings and how stable his wrist is. But as soon as you start hitting off center, then the racket starts twisting a little bit. It starts twisting and just not doing what it's supposed to. So your racket face goes haywire and you lose control of the ball. So, and that's where the elbow fatigue that you're talking about is probably happening. If it's a grip issue, I would say, I mean, we can't tell unless you're not in continental grip, which, by the way, everyone who's asking about grips, your grip should be a continental grip on your forehand and your backhand volley. It should not change. But as far as the technique goes, this is something that you can train, is making sure that you are hitting the ball in the center of your strings every time. So if you want to train this, you can go to volleyactionplan.com and we have our step-by-step progressions. That's not a plug, it's just for you to get better. Megan, do you have any Facebook questions?
Yes. So Wally wants to know if some players are really good at volleys, especially in doubles, should we mix it up by giving some lobs? And if you want to keep the ball to the baseline, what are some drills to work on that we would suggest?
So yes to the first one. Basically, I mean, it's like if I'm playing Roger Federer and his forehand's really good, I'm going to try not to hit him with forehand. So I would say avoid your opponent's strength if you could. I don't know if I understand the second question. What are drills we can do to
keep the ball deep? I think he wants to know like how to, like maybe his volleys are landing a little short and how we can work on keeping the ball deeper. Great. Now I could be wrong, Wally. So let me Volley. Let me know if I'm wrong. But I'm assuming that question means if I want to keep the ball deeper in the court, what are some drills that I can do to work on that?
Okay, one thing, I don't know if it's necessarily a drill, but it's just managing your racket face angle. The one thing I think of is when players, actually it won't make sense to do on the board, but when players hit volleys, a lot of times we're thinking hit volley and the ball is going to have the straight line. And if it does have a straight line, it's going to land short. When I hit a volley, there actually is a little bit of curve to create depth. So when I'm hitting a volley, the ball is not going straight down. It's actually traveling slightly up to get more length into the court. So I think that's a great drill. If you want to turn it into a drill, is just have a friend hit you balls from the baseline, and you focus on having the correct racket face angle that creates the length of making sure the ball has a tiny bit of shape. It's not like a ground stroke shape, but it's going to create a little bit of shape, keeping the ball deeper, if that's what you're saying. Wally.
And as far as actual drills, you'll see more on volleyactionplan.com. But here's what we do with our students is we have them start here. Yeah, that's okay. And and we will have this person on the other side of the net starting really close with them, just finding out the face of your racket, building your awareness. You know, we talk about quality of contact that we just talked about, hitting it in the middle of your strings. And we slowly, we'll take this person back about here. And we slowly bring the other person farther and farther back. Every time they move back, they've got a target in front of them. And they're feeding the ball, and then you go into rallying. So this is a progression that we explain on volleyactionplan.com. But every time we move back, then I would move my target here. And then I move my person all the way back to the baseline after you have completed every single step from the net through the service line, no man's land, and then the baseline. And then we're putting our target right there. So as far as a drill goes, start with this progression because it's more realistic if you are learning this skill to start and work your way through it rather than just starting here. So that is a really good drill that you can use at home or to volleyactionplan.com. Okay, let's go into.
I feel like I want to say that over.
I know.
Volleyaction.com. Volleyactionplan.com.
So, should you hit most volleys with backspin? This is a question from Jason Pfister.
Should you hit most volleys with backspin? That's a good one. Generally, I do hit most of my volleys with backspin. It's a natural kind of progression of what the ball is going to do because I'm trying to keep the ball low. Generally, a little bit, I don't want to say the more backspin I can hit, the lower the ball is going to be, and it makes where my opponent has to hit up, which gives me the opportunity to hit down, and that's what I want. Doesn't mean every volley is going to be hit that way. Usually, if it's a ball closer to net, you're going to get backspin. As it gets a little higher, I can actually get behind the ball more and do more with it without having backspin on it.
Do you ever hit a volley with topspin? Let's say, and I'm going to take swinging volleys out of this.
Oh. No,
No.
I've never really hit a volley with topspin.
So,
Unless
should you
swinging,
hit
yeah.
most volleys with backspin?
Yes.
Just to be clear, yes.
Trick question.
Megan, do you have a question?
Yes.
Burning question.
Tara would like to know, which I think is a great question, about what strategies we would recommend against net players. When you have both net players against you, your opponents coming to the net and attacking, what would you do against them?
I see.
Down,
So this is doubles.
And
yeah,
down,
doubles?
yes, in doubles.
Down the middle
Yes.
solves the riddle. So usually, it's corny, but it works. So I would generally, if I have two people at net, I'm taking the ball low to the feet in the middle of the court because I'm trying to bring them together. And maybe one of them might not communicate as well, and they pop it up, and then I have an opportunity. If they both generally go and one person hits it, now I've brought them together. I've maybe created some openings on the side, and if they hit the ball a little bit shorter because I've hit the ball low to their feet, I can move in, giving them less time to react, and then either go down the middle again if I don't feel like it's short enough, or go down or go towards the opening I created. But usually I just go down the middle to the feet until I get a really short ball, and then I do whatever I want because by that time I'm so much closer to them, they have so much less time to react that they're not going to get the next ball back.
Claudio just asked, what about the volley near the baseline on a recent question? I would say we let it bounce. If you have a volley that's near the baseline, you shouldn't be hitting it as a volley. Let the ball bounce and hit a ground stroke.
Yes, I would say the only exception to that is in 12-year-old juniors, where the lob is 90% of their game, and coming in and hitting a swinging volley when it's a really high ball instead of taking it on the rise, sometimes it's easier for people.
I see.
Than taking the ball on the rise if it's really high. But most of the time, if you're hitting a regular volley out of the air from the baseline, it's going out.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I would say the only other situation is, let's say you move slightly inside the baseline to hit a shot, but you're not quite going to net. This can happen in doubles more so than singles. And you kind of get in this weird position where you're maybe like 3 feet inside the baseline, but you're not really approaching. And you're recovering, and while, let's say you're recovering, you hit the ball close to the baseline, you might take the ball out of the air for a situation like that without recovering back because you just don't have time. And if you recover back, you're going to probably lift the ball up anyway. But you're just in a really bad position.
Yeah, don't stand inside the baseline.
Yeah, don't stand inside the baseline.
How do you get, do you have a question?
I do, because I thought this
please.
was really interesting from Andre Ramos, hopefully.
Awesome.
It says, ready position, should I have it straight arm or be relaxed or bent? Grip pressure, should I loosen like a ground stroke? I really like to know insight. So
Gotcha.
It brings up a really, I think, I don't want to call it a pet peeve, but maybe it might be a pet peeve, is that I see a lot of recreational players do this. This is like, I mean, this just drives me nuts when I see this. It's like the defend yourself ready position.
Like a samurai.
Yeah, samurai is like. So I personally don't teach that, and these are the reasons why. the racket is interrupting my field of view. So I'm like, okay, I'm always looking around the ball.
James, can you make that the preview image, by the way?
I know.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
B, holding the racket up this high. I mean, so if the ball comes any lower, I have to take the racket down. So the things I like to look for in a ready position is I actually don't have my students start like this. I think this is kind of, when you start like this, a lot of times it's not as efficient. If you look at the pros, the way they start the ready position is the racket is generally against their body like this, meaning the arms are slightly bent, it's in front enough. This is the reason why. If they have, or if you have a backhand volley or a ball that comes at your body, the easiest way to hit it is just to simply turn your shoulders. And now you can cover any ball from here all the way over. Okay, look at that. I can cover, if I just do this, boom, I can take a volley here, here, here. And then if I have a forehand, I can just do this. Compared to having here and the ball comes at you and you have to do this action compared to just turning here. So usually the racket's not in the eye level, chest high, at a slight angle, arms are bent, and I don't have a lot of grip pressure. I'm not clutching the racket. It's actually fairly relaxed because I still want to absorb or have that recoil on the ball unless it's the ball I really want to stick. So I saw that question, great question. I wanted to take a bite.
You want to talk about the grip pressure too that he
I did.
Oh, did you?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, so if I didn't, I thought I did, but no choking the racket, just nice and relaxed. Just keep it nice and smooth. And it's just like I'm holding the racket right now and it's able to wiggle. It's not where you see me kind of like flexing because I'm holding it so stiff. And this will also, by being relaxed in the hand, allows you to be quicker in the hands. If you're really stiff and clutching the racket, you're not going to be quick when the ball maybe comes at you and you just have to deflect it back or react.
I have a couple if you want me to.
Please, yeah.
Okay. I think Nathan asked, he says, last time I played, I ran through all my volleys, trying to close into the net, missed almost all of them. I know I need to stop, but I can't remember the right positioning, which we talked about.
Like bull in a china shop.
Yes. And now, when do you step into the volleys and when do you not need to step into the volleys? Or is there a difference? He says, sometimes I feel comfortable without the step.
Felt the step.
That's a good question because a lot of people are so ingrained to step, punch, step, punch, step, punch, that it's like there's no other possibility. So I'm, first of all, glad that he's entertaining the fact that there are other possibilities. There are other ways.
I know.
Yeah, our downstairs neighbors are loving this. Just keep going, Kev.
They'll knock, they'll come up.
What do you guys think about what's the difference between when you maybe need to just step out versus when you are stepping across?
I think it's in positioning. I think it's how fast the ball is coming at you, how great of a position you're in. I think one of the biggest teaching tools that a lot of pros use is the crossover step, but that it's not essential to hitting a good volley by any means. I think a lot of people, you'll hear a lot of pros say split step, split step, split step. And that drives me nuts because I always say like this, the split step is just the little ready position that gets you in position, and you don't have to really step at the volley. You move through the volley. So you actually want to, if you have this loud step like Kevin was doing to our downstairs neighbors, then that's probably not what you're looking for in the volley. You actually want a softer step and moving through the volley because you're actually moving in and closing into the net more. So I think the simple answer is you want to do what's comfortable and what's working for you. If there are plenty of times where you're going to step out and then step in through the volley. There's going to be plenty of times where you load with the outside leg and you don't step in through the volley. So I think the load on the outside leg is the number one thing that you definitely want to do on the volley. But whether you step in after that is just depending upon where you are on the court and are you moving through the ball.
No, I totally agree. It's just I'm like, because I hear it. I've heard so many people go, my coach told me to like step and like kill ants and kill things, and it's just like, who is this guy?
So
it's like
violent.
a violent,
Yeah.
like kill everything.
So unnecessary.
But I do think the biggest thing is your outside leg. So, just kind of reiterating what Megan said, is just making sure that when I'm hitting a volley, let's say I'm at net and the ball comes. Well, if the ball comes, I don't have time to necessarily go step. Okay, I love this. I mean, I see this so much where everybody's trying to step and they're getting pegged by balls because they're trying to step. I mean, the biggest thing is just making sure you load the outside leg and push. And it's not like Megan was saying, be comfortable. It's like if I load my outside leg, I can push where I want the ball to go. So it changes your step. If I'm moving through the ball, as I move through, what you want to do is stay balanced, load the outside leg, hit the ball, and continue to stay balanced as you're hitting the ball. One drill that I like to use, or I tell people as a concept to use, is imagine you're holding a cup of water and volleying at the same time. Are you going to step and kill things and then spill the water everywhere? Or are you going to be smooth as you move through the ball and not spill anything? So I think that's really important. Sorry, I got really excited about that question.
I love it.
Yeah,
so we talked about confidence on the court, but Arctic Fox, which is great, says, how do you stay fearless at the net?
I think it's confidence. I think, like I said, I don't know, I've always been in belief that volleys are 80% confidence, 20% can you hit the ball over the net. So I think if you feel like you're going to be able to hit a good volley, you're going to be able to hit a decent volley. The volley's going to go over the net.
I think it's attitude, especially in doubles. I would categorize myself as being fearless in that, more on the lines of fearless and kamikaze. But I think more so it's just not getting caught up. If you do something, if you miss the volley, most players kind of back away and go, I'm not going to do that again. If I go for a poach in doubles and I miss it, oh, the next ball, I'm coming right back at you. And I think that's fearless. Not getting caught up in, let's say, if I miss the ball, I miss that volley, oh, I shouldn't do it again. But if you miss it, just make the mental correction of what you need to do and go after it again, stick with it. And that, I think, is what makes a net player fearless.
Mm-hmm.
You're pumped today.
Like it. Juice. Bringing it. Well, I mean, ever since that you brought up the mention of the Karate Kid, it's like game over. Watch out for Kevin. Okay. Is a volley more of a guided block than a punch? That's from Wyatt Bender.
I actually had that question here, and I actually didn't bring it up. I answered it with, Ian has a great video on punching volleys and why you should never punch your volleys. He's very against the punch, and for good reason. So I put that YouTube that we have on Don't Punch Your Volleys. So I put it in Facebook, but I can send it to you.
Okay.
Because I think it goes over that whole thing really well. And but in a sense, no, don't punch your volleys. Yes.
Okay, from Alan X, should I be swinging downwards and slicing the volleys? Because my coach told me to hit them straight and flat towards the target, but I don't feel like I have good control like that, and then I spray them.
I spray them. It's a bit of both. It's not a downward hack, but it's not, I don't think, a straight action. It's having the racket face slightly open and meeting the ball where I'm creating some backspin. I'm not chopping down on the ball. God, no, there's nothing here to do it with. But it's just general, I think, of having a racket face in a slightly open position. You probably see it from this angle. And as I'm hitting, yes, I'm coming this way, slightly down and across, pushing out. So when I'm creating my volley, my racket's going out towards my target, but I'm not hacking because that's going to take the ball into the net. But I'm also not being extremely flat, because a lot of times if you're extremely flat, you're right, you're not going to have any feel. And you want that feel to control and put the ball where you want.
If Ian Westerman were here, he would say something about, and I can't believe it hasn't come up, we're about 47 minutes into this. He would say that there are a million different flavors of hitting the right volley that you want. And that has to do with it. That sometimes you are right on top of the net and you can't, but that's more of a rarity. Kevin has talked about giving yourself a little arch in your volley, that the volley does need that shape, even though it's smaller than a ground stroke would be back at the baseline. On these volleys, you need to you have to be able to own all of these different flavors, as Ian puts it, in order to really be a successful net player. So having the option of hitting more than just the flat shot that maybe is spraying for you is a great start. From Moonstone M5, should you hold the racket higher up if volleying?
Like racket head or grip on the racket?
I'm going to say both because I think both are important, because I think that so many people teach that the racket head has to be up above the wrist no matter what. So, I would say for both. Should you hold it higher?
No.
I would say the answer
I
is
wouldn't
easy,
hold it
no.
higher.
But then should your racket head be higher when you're volleying too?
I think in general it might be, but I look at not so much as the racket head. I look at the L shape between your wrist and the racket. And so a lot of times that creates the racket being in this kind of position where it's up. But you'll also notice when the ball's low, if you continue to keep that L shape in your hand, the racket can actually be even or even sometimes lower than the wrist. But having the racket up creates the stability in the wrist area, where if you just kind of drop it like this, you lose a lot of the kind of, I think, resistance or ability to kind of like have stability through contact. I don't know. What do you guys think? Hi.
Yeah, I was just going to say that one. There's...
we heard Ian.
Yeah.
He's talking to us.
He's talking to us from the other side.
He's here.
From the other side.
He's here right now. Ian.
Yeah, he does a good video about that and about how you can actually drop it's not about the wrist necessarily and that kind of stuff. So that's good. I do have a question, Kirby.
Okay.
And it's a very interesting one from Bruno.
Okay.
What are the best rackets to use for volleys?
Oh, yes. We were talking about this earlier. The best rackets. I am someone who believes that you can, if you are technically sound, you can execute it with any racket.
Any flavor.
Any flavor. What's your flavor? What do you guys think about buying a racket specifically for volleys?
I think it's a bad idea generally buying a racket specifically for volleys. So what are you going to do if you have the ground strokes or a serve? I think a racket, I mean, what Kirby's saying is correct. I mean, if you have the technique to hit the volley, if you have a wooden racket, a plastic racket, well, I don't know about
a
plastic.
frying pan.
Hey, I've seen it done with a frying pan.
I have too. It's pretty cool.
You're going to hit a volley. I think it's getting a racket. I don't think the racket makes the volley. I think you make the volley.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, and even if there are definitely rackets that are weighted differently, that because you can find a racket that's more head heavy or one that's more grip heavy. So you can find a racket that suits your need for your volleys, but you need something that's going to suit a range of needs. You can't just, nobody is ever attacking that much. Maybe at the level you are, and then that's the way to go. But for me personally, I'm with Kevin on this one.
I think you can change your racket tension, your string tension a little bit if you feel like you're not getting enough feel on the ball in general.
No.
Which might help with your volleys, but I don't think changing the actual racket.
Let's see. How do you have a target or a okay, Arctic Fox again. When exactly do we split step when moving forward to a volley?
When do we split step?
Yes.
I think of coming down and having my feet touch the ground when the person's about to make contact with the ball. So you really, as you hit the ball and you're moving forward, you really, really, really have to pay attention to when your opponent's hitting the ball. So as they're about to hit, the moment they make contact, I'm coming down. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's like before, but as they hit, I'm coming down to make the choice in what direction I'm going to move.
Do you have a question?
I do. What is the difference between driving the ball, the angle of the racket on the drive of the ball, and the angle of the racket on angle volleys?
Angle of racket on driving the ball, angle of racket of, well, the big difference is because you're hitting an angle, that let's say you're the net, that my racket's going to be facing towards the angle versus the drive is going to be facing towards whatever direction. The other difference, I think, is that because you're driving the ball, you're going to be driving through the ball more. You're going to be using more legs. Whereas an angle volley, because you're angling it off the court, and I'm thinking being like this is an angle finishing volley, not like I'm hitting a general angle. You don't want to create a lot of follow through. You don't want to create a lot of legs pushing through the ball because you have less court to work with on the angle. So I think those are the differences, unless I didn't answer one of those questions.
And I also say like an angle volley, if you're talking a high volley versus a volley that's a little bit the same as the net, like the same height as the net on a drive volley. They're going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit, since you're already above the net on the angle volley, you're going to be able to kind of not pronate, because we talked about that one earlier, but like you're going to be able to actually move through the volley this way rather than a drive would be more moving this way, depending upon the height of the ball.
Yeah.
Let's see. A question from Scott Hare, who is a recent VIP student of ours. What should the target be for volleys and doubles? I've heard everything from hit the center because it's safest, to hit their feet, to angle it off the court. What are your thoughts?
That's a tough one, to be honest, because there are so many different places you can hit. It's like word of the day, flavor. What's your flavor? But I generally, I do think about hitting the, so here's the situation, I'll set it up. I'm the person in the net, there's a person in front of me at the baseline, and the opponent's partner's at the net. If generally I'm poaching in doubles, I'm gonna try to hit close to the middle tee or close to my opponents at the net around their feet. Generally, I don't like taking the poach right at them because then they a lot of times reflex it back to my partner and I've done nothing. So that's in poaching. My general, I guess, rule is if I can't finish the ball in doubles and I'm at the net, I hit the ball right back to my opponent at the baseline. They're the furthest away from me. I'm gonna have the most time to react. And hopefully if I hit it good, they're gonna have, being at the baseline, I'll have more time to react to their shot. If I do have a chance to finish the shot, I'm gonna do what I just told you to. Or maybe angle it, but still I prefer, because I want to follow the ball, I prefer poaching this way than angling off this way, and let's say opening up the court to my opponent if they maybe get to it.
Yeah, it all depends on positioning and tactic, the tactics that you're using, the patterns that your partners have been, or your opponents have been using. So it depends. All of these can be the right shot, just depending on where everybody is. Let's jump into a question from Raven. What are the differences between the volley and doubles and the volley and singles in terms of strategy and positioning?
Kind of bouncing back to the last question. For doubles, that's probably one of my main strategies in doubles, is that usually you're waiting for the right time to finish the shot. So if I'm in doubles and let's say I have a partner back and I'm at the net, if I don't have the shot, let's say they hit me a low ball, I'm going right back to the person at the baseline. If I do have a shot that allows me to hit down in the court, then I'm going to attack the person who's closest to me or around that person, because they have the least amount of time to react to the ball versus the person at the baseline who has more time. When it comes to singles, the biggest difference is timing, meaning that if I approach down the line, and let's say my opponent gets there and they have the ball back low to me, if they hit it low to me, I have to hit up. So I don't want to hit to the open court generally. And that's what I think a big mistake is. Most players hit to the open court, their opponent runs there. They have more time because the ball has to travel up over the net. And then I have less time to react because they're running forward. So generally, I hit the ball back where it came from if the ball's not in a great position. And if I'm going to angle it, I need to make sure that I'm hitting down into the court so it doesn't bounce up and it gives my opponent less time. That's just a rough estimate. There's so many other different situations to take into account, but it's about time. I think in both cases where you're trying to minimize the amount of time your opponent gets to hit the ball because you're at net. So in doubles, in the case, I go towards the person who's closest to me. In singles, in the case, I only choose to go to the open court or finish the shot because the ball's hit above the net, allowing me to really drive the ball and take time away from my opponent so they can't get it, versus kind of letting the ball drop and trying to finish it, where I now have to slow the ball down and gives my opponent more time.
Perfect. Megan, do you have any burning questions over on Facebook?
Yes, Katie would like to know if what type of volley you should choose in doubles has a lot to do with the shot they just hit. When to go short, if a short ball is effective.
In doubles?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And when you should try to finish it deep to the baseline.
In doubles. Will you repeat that?
Yes. What type of volley you should choose in doubles has a lot to do with the shot they just hit. If I was hit a deep ball in the court, should I go short? When to hit the ball short, and when to keep the ball deep at the baseline.
In doubles, again,
Yeah,
like
same
the same like
line of
that's my
questioning.
yeah, it's like almost the same thing, because I think in doubles, I don't want to bring, let's say if I'm at net, I don't want to bring the person to net because now I'm going to get less time. There are very few occasions, if I can keep the ball very low by hitting enough underspin, I might, but generally I want to keep it deep, low, making my opponent hit up. Now, if I'm at the baseline, I guess the question was about being a net. So yeah, I mean.
Now, I will say that there are times where I might hit the ball really soft. Like if I have a guy who, say I'm playing someone and they're just, out hitting me from the baseline. Maybe I want to bring them forward. They can't volley. So I want to soften the ball and have, a soft volley backspin that's going to land a little bit inside the service line or around the service line. So they actually have to dig down and lift the ball up to me while I'm at the net so I can close.
No, that's a good idea.
So I would say that's one instance where it would be really good to hit the ball soft and short. But other than that, keeping the ball deep is always good.
Question from Nat Zing. How do I get better at putting the ball away at net? So I think that people are going to really love this question. Everybody wants to be able to put the ball away. I mean, ultimately, that's why we go to the net, right? We want to end the point and possibly do something cool. But especially in doubles, it's not good enough just getting the ball back. Nat says, I want to be able to put it away more consistently. So how do we do that?
I feel like I'm going to say the same thing. So maybe I'll draw it. I don't know.
Draw it. Yeah.
I'm going to draw. Boom. So, boom. So my point in being is that if, like, the idea of putting the ball away, it's really hard unless you get a sitter ball. If, let's say this is me, I'll put me. If this is me, it's really hard to put the ball away here unless I get a ball that's really high above the net. If I get a ball that usually in doubles where the ball's around this area, it's just really hard to put the ball away unless you get a ball that's higher that allows you to take the ball off the court this way. And again, my fear is that this person runs over here, and then now if they can hit here, I'm going to get less time to cover it. So when I think about putting the ball away, this is my focus area. And I shouldn't really say this, but really like right around here. Because what happens is if I hit the ball here, they're not going to have enough time, and usually they pop it up. And here's another, I guess it's a bonus. If you hit the ball here and then follow it, the ball's going to pop up and you get to finish it. That's if you want to talk about finishing. Generally, if I hit the ball here and this person doesn't get it, this person, let's say they run over and get it now, it opens up the court. I think of putting the ball away about either taking away time or creating a positioning mistake for my opponent by, let's say, hitting it here. This person misses it. This person runs over. They hit a ball, and poof, now that court's open. So it's either about taking away time or creating really good positioning. So that's how I put a ball away. I never think about, let's say, if I get a normal ball here, I'm going to put something away. I'm going to think about, again, going back deep to see if I can get a better opportunity to attack here, or usually, like Megan said, she had a good point, bringing them closer so I can maybe get a good position to put them away. I don't really have
I think you said a really important thing about that we haven't really covered today, which I'm interesting enough, is following the ball. I think doubles. To be a great volleyer in singles or doubles, you have to know how to follow the ball. At the net, you're always looking to take a couple steps towards wherever you hit the ball. So like, for instance, if you hit the ball cross, if you're angling towards the little guy, the big guy is aiming towards the little guy, then
how'd that happen?
then you need to make sure that you're taking a couple steps towards the center line. After you do that, you're following the ball to the way that you hit it. And that's in doubles and singles, both people. Thanks for that demonstration. But I think that is probably one of the biggest things if you're already at the net, if you have great technique, if you have good volleys. I think it's all about the movement and following the ball.
Yeah. Putting away the ball, positioning, or timing.
Yep. Okay. So we have been talking about nothing but volleys for the last hour. If you could sum up everything that we're talking about with just a couple of different really key themes for everyone at home to have successful volleys, what would you say?
Continental grip.
Perfect.
I'll let you sum up first.
Well, I just figured we'd just all chime in on different.
Continental grip, using your outside leg to push through and knowing the timing. How can you best take away time in singles or doubles? By going to the open court, am I taking away time or am I actually taking away time for myself? So those are, I guess, my three things. Continental.
Outside foot's really,
outside foot.
Outside foot's huge. But I think also just legs. Using your legs more in general on the volley. Not using your hands as much.
Well, and if you are using your hands, using them way less. So for me, it would be tension and simplicity. Flavor. Word of the day. In Ian's honor.
In Ian's honor, I'm going to say flavor, y'all.
Flavor, y'all. Okay, so we do this. If you're not in the know, we want you to be in the know. We do this coaching show live every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So mark your calendars because next week's topic will be all about doubles strategy. We touched on some doubles strategy today, but if you've got specific burning questions that you can come up with in the next week, let us know. We're going to have reminders of events on Facebook and on YouTube and where you can be pre-submitting your questions. So in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Get those questions ready. And if you ever want to have a webinar where you are guaranteed to have your question answered, then head over to essentialtennisacademy.com where we do this all the time within our academy and make sure that you get exactly the coaching that you're looking for. All of your answers, question answered. God, always. All right. So see you guys next time. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe on this video. And thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Bye.